New dawn. The silence in the chamber pressed like physical weight. Verin's confident smile had faltered. Other council members exchanged uncertain glances. Finally, Councillor Marin, an elderly woman who'd served longer than anyone, spoke. Overseer Thresh, in 50 years on this council, I've never witnessed such a declaration. Marcus's heart sank. This was it. They'd both. And it's about damn time, Marin finished, her weathered face breaking into a grin. Verin, your obsession with isolation has always been nonsense. My wife was my research partner for 30 years. Made me better at everything, including service here. This is different, Verin protested. How? Another councillor, Jax, leaned forward. Because they haven't been together decades. Everyone starts somewhere. Frankly, I'm impressed by their discretion and professionalism despite feelings. That shows discipline, not impropriety. The tide was turning. Marcus watched hope bloom on Liona's face as more council members nodded agreement. The morality clause, Marin continued, was designed to prevent exploitation and favoritism. I've reviewed Archivist Webb's performance records. Overseer Thresh has been harder on him than other staff, likely overcompensating. There's no favoritism here. Just two people navigating complicated feelings with integrity. This sets dangerous precedent, Verin argued, but his voice lacked conviction. Good, Marin replied. We need new precedents. The archives serve life and culture. Can't celebrate humanity's greatest achievements while forbidding our leaders from experiencing them. The votes came swiftly, 12-3 in favor of maintaining Marcus's contract. Verin looked apoplectic. And my position? Liona asked quietly. Marin smiled. Not even bringing that to vote, dear. You're the finest overseer we've had. Though we will require one thing. Liona tensed. Yes. Regular reports. Not surveillance, just check-ins. Prove this works. That personal connection enhances rather than compromises leadership. Be our test case for changing these outdated protocols. I can do that, Liona said, her voice thick with emotion. Then we're adjourned. Marin banged her gavel. Oh, and Overseer? Take tomorrow off. You both look exhausted. They didn't speak until reaching Liona's quarters, larger than Marcus expected, filled with books and soft lighting. The moment the door sealed, she was in his arms. That was insane, Marcus breathed against her hair. You could have lost everything. I nearly did. Lose everything by losing you. She pulled back to look at him. I meant what I said. I love you. It's terrifying and irrational, and... He kissed her quiet. I love you too. We'll figure out the rest. And they did, slowly. Learning each other beyond stolen moments. Marcus discovered she hummed while cataloguing. Liona learned he talked in his sleep, usually about grammar. Their relationship became the archive's worst-kept secret and, surprisingly, a source of quiet pride among staff. 3 months later, they presented their first joint paper on emotional resonance in preservation methodology. Marin attended the lecture, smiling knowingly as they presented side by side. Professional, brilliant, and occasionally exchanging glances that spoke volumes. You're staring, Liona whispered during audience questions. I'm admiring, Marcus corrected. There's a difference. Noted for my records. Her hand found his beneath the podium. Your observations are improving, Archivist Webb. I had an excellent teacher. That evening, in the observation deck where everything began, they watched the binary stars dance around each other. Two separate bodies caught in mutual orbit, better together than apart. Do you ever regret it? Marcus asked. The risk, the complications. Liona leaned against him, peaceful in a way she'd never been before. Every relationship is documented somewhere in these archives, carved in stone, written in verse, encoded in songs. People have always chosen connection despite risk. We're just the latest chapter. Think anyone will read our story someday? Probably not. We're just two people who found each other. She smiled. But maybe that's enough. Maybe private stories matter most. Marcus kissed her temple. I'll still write about you, you know. Old habits. Good. I'll write about you too. She held up her own journal, matching leather to his. Fair's fair. Above them, stars wheeled in ancient patterns, indifferent to human hearts. But in the archive built to preserve what matters, two people had found something worth more than all the knowledge in the cosmos, each other, honest and whole. And that, they both knew, was its own kind of infinity. The end. Alone by the fire, surrounded by huntresses, desire flickered in the shadows. The crash and the cold. The shuttle hit the frozen canopy of Theralis like a stone skipping across water. Once, twice, then a sickening crunch that sent Marcus Chen tumbling through harnesses and collapsing bulkheads. When silence finally came, it brought with it the bitter cold. Marcus dragged himself through the twisted hatchway, his shoulder screaming protest with every movement. Blood trickled warm down his temple, already freezing in the sub-zero air. The moon's twin stars hung low on the horizon, casting long purple shadows across endless forests of crystalline trees. Beautiful. Deadly. His survival training kicked in through the fog of shock. Fire. Shelter. Signal. He gathered scattered supplies from the wreckage, emergency blankets, a medkit, the last of his ration packs. The shuttle's power cell was cracked but not dead. With numb fingers, he rigged a crude ignition system and coaxed a small flame to life among fragments of carbon fiber paneling. The fire caught, grew, pushed back the killing cold. Marcus collapsed beside it, wrapping himself in foil blankets that crinkled like whispers. His emergency beacon pulsed weakly from his wrist device. 3 days, maybe 4, before the rescue team could reach this sector. He just had to survive until then. That's when he felt it, the weight of observation, heavy as the snow beginning to fall. Marcus turned slowly, scanning the tree line. Nothing moved. But his instincts, honed through years of frontier surveying, screamed that he wasn't alone. He was right. 50 meters away, concealed within a cluster of frost-laden branches, Lyria Thane crouched in perfect stillness. Her hunting leathers, dyed in patterns that matched the winter forest, rendered her nearly invisible. Behind her, spread in a careful arc, for more huntresses of the Velkara tribe maintained their positions. He survived the fall, whispered Kessa, Lyria's younger sister, her voice barely audible even in the silence. That's uncommon for skywalkers. Lyria didn't respond, her silver eyes fixed on the stranger. He moved with pain but also determination, building his fire with clever hands, rationing his resources. Not the typical carelessness she'd seen from others who'd violated Theralis' sanctuary. This one respected the land, even unknowingly. Orders, sister. Myra, their eldest warrior, rested a hand on her curved blade. The elders said any intruders. I know what they said. Lyria's breath misted in the air. We watch. For now. The fire crackled between two worlds, and neither knew how it would consume them both. The circle tightens. The fire had burned down to embers when Marcus heard the sound, a deliberate footstep on frozen ground. Not trying to hide anymore. His hand moved instinctively toward the emergency flare in his pack. I wouldn't. The voice came from directly behind him, smooth and accented in ways his translator struggled to parse. My sisters have arrows trained on your heart. Marcus froze, then slowly raised his hands. I mean no harm. My shuttle malfunctioned. I'm just trying to survive until rescue arrives. Silence. Then she stepped into the dying firelight. Marcus's breath caught. She was tall, perhaps 6 feet, with skin that seemed to shimmer faintly blue-gray in the moonlight, an adaptation to Theralis' unique radiation, he guessed. Her hair fell in dark waves past her shoulders, adorned with small bones and crystalline beads. She wore fitted leather armor that spoke of both function and artistry, and her eyes. Those silver eyes held intelligence, caution, and something else he couldn't quite name. You crashed into the sacred hunting grounds, she said, circling him slowly. This is forbidden territory for skywalkers. I didn't choose to crash here. Marcus kept his hands visible. I'm a surveyor. Marcus Chen. I was mapping mineral deposits in the outer system when my guidance system failed. She studied him with unsettling intensity, as if reading truths written on his skin. I am Lyria Thane, first huntress of the Velkara. She gestured, and two more figures emerged from the shadows, one younger with similar features, another older with scars crossing her weathered face. My sister, Kessa. Our weapons master, Myra. Pleasure, Marcus said carefully. I think. Kessa laughed, a sound like wind chimes. He has humor, even with arrows pointed at him. Lyria crouched across the fire from Marcus, the flames reflecting in her eyes. You built a clever fire. Most Skywalkers would have burned through their fuel in an hour, then frozen. She tilted her head. You respect the cold. I respect anything that can kill me. Marcus fed another piece of wreckage into the flames. The cold, the isolation, beautiful women with weapons. He caught himself. Sorry. Stress makes me talk. A smile ghosted across Lyria's lips, the first crack in her warrior composure. You should be more afraid. Probably. Marcus pulled out a ration pack. I have food, if you're hungry. It's not much, but it's warm. He activated the heating element, and the smell of reconstituted stew filled the air. The Huntresses exchanged glances. Kessa wrinkled her nose. It smells like boiled boots. Tastes better than it smells, Marcus offered. Barely. Lyria made a decision. She settled fully onto the ground across from him, accepting the offered container. Their fingers brushed briefly during the exchange, a spark of warmth beyond the fire. The elders will not be pleased, Myra warned. The elders aren't freezing in the forest, Lyria replied, taking a small bite. Her expression shifted. You were right. It does taste better than it smells. Marcus found himself smiling despite everything. That's the nicest thing anyone's said about military rations. As the fire crackled between them, the distance separating their worlds seemed suddenly smaller. Words in the darkness. The fire had settled into a steady rhythm, casting dancing shadows across the small clearing. Marcus and Lyria sat in a silence that had gradually shifted from tense to contemplative. Kessa and Myra remained at the perimeter, watchful but no longer hostile. Your people, Marcus ventured, breaking the quiet. You've lived on Theralis long. Lyria's fingers traced patterns in the ash at the fire's edge. Longer than your people have traveled the stars. We were here before the first Skywalker looked down and saw our world as something to claim. I'm not here to claim anything. Marcus winced as he shifted his injured shoulder. Just doing my job. Mapping resources so colonies don't strip planets bare. Sustainable development. Noble words. Lyria's tone was skeptical but not mocking. Yet you still come. We still come, he admitted. I won't lie about that. The honesty seemed to surprise her. She looked at him more openly now, studying his face in the firelight. You're bleeding again. She pointed to his temple where the wound had reopened. It's fine. But Lyria had already moved, sliding around the fire with fluid grace. She knelt beside him, close enough that he could smell the scent of pine and something uniquely her. From a pouch at her belt, she extracted a small vial of luminescent paste. This will sting, she warned, her voice softer now. I've had worse. The medicine hit his wound like ice and fire combined. Marcus hissed through his teeth. Men, Kessa called from the darkness. Always so brave until the healing begins. Despite the pain, Marcus laughed. Lyria's lips quirked as she worked, her touch surprisingly gentle. Her fingers were cooler than human temperature, but not uncomfortably so. She cleaned the wound with careful precision, and he found himself very aware of how close she was, the curve of her jaw, the concentration in her eyes, the way her breath misted in the cold air. There. She sat back slightly but didn't retreat to the other side of the fire. The bleeding should stop now. Thank you. Marcus met her gaze. You didn't have to do that. You fed us. We heal you. This is balance. But something in her expression suggested it wasn't quite that simple. He pulled out his tablet, the screen flickering to life. Can I show you something? At her nod, he pulled up images, not of Theralis, but of Earth. Oceans. Mountains. Cities of light stretching toward the sky. This is where I'm from. Lyria leaned closer, fascinated. Her shoulder pressed against his as she examined the images. So much water. 70% of the surface. He swiped through photos, his family, his sister's children, the small apartment overlooking San Francisco Bay he called home. I survey to help support them. My sister's husband was injured. Medical debt. You travel the stars for family. Lyria's voice held new understanding. This I comprehend. She gestured, and he handed her the tablet. Their fingers lingered together for a moment longer than necessary. Lyria's touch sent unexpected warmth through him despite the cold. Show me more, she said softly. So he did, and as the night deepened around them, the space between stranger and something more continued to narrow. The storm within. The temperature dropped suddenly, a wall of Arctic wind that made the fire gutter and nearly die. Marcus looked up to see the sky darkening, clouds rolling in with frightening speed. Snow began to fall, not the gentle drift from earlier, but thick, blinding sheets. Storm, Myra called out, already moving toward them. A bad one. We need shelter now. Marcus gestured to the shuttle wreckage. There's a section that's mostly intact. It's small, but it'll block the wind. Lyria didn't hesitate. Everyone inside. We'll freeze if we stay exposed. They moved quickly, gathering what they could. Marcus led them to a portion of the shuttle where the crew compartment had folded but not completely collapsed, creating a cramped cave of twisted metal. He activated 2 emergency lights, bathing the space in pale blue luminescence. The 5 Huntresses crowded in with him, Lyria, Kessa, Myra, and 2 others who'd remained silent. Venna, a young scout with keen eyes, and Thera, whose weathered features spoke of decades surviving Theralis's harsh seasons. Cozy, Kessa muttered, pressed against her sister. The space was barely large enough for 6 people. They arranged themselves in a rough circle, emergency blankets shared between them. The cold was relentless, seeping through metal walls despite their shelter. Gradually, inevitably, they pressed closer together for warmth. Marcus found himself shoulder to shoulder with Lyria, their legs touching. On his other side, Venna huddled against Myra. The wind howled outside like a living thing, and snow piled against their fragile shelter. Tell us a story, Skywalker, Thera said, her teeth chattering slightly. Distract us from the cold. Marcus thought for a moment. All right. When I was young, maybe 7, I got lost in the mountains near my home. I thought I was exploring, being brave. Really, I was just stupid and unprepared. He felt Lyria shift beside him, her attention focused. Night came. It got cold, not this cold, but cold enough for a kid. I was terrified. How did you survive? Kessa asked. My sister found me. She'd tracked me for hours, following broken branches and footprints. She was only 12, but she was fearless. She wrapped me in her jacket, even though she was freezing too, and led me home. He smiled at the memory. She never let me forget it. Still calls me her lost boy. She sounds formidable, Lyria said quietly. In the close quarters, her voice seemed to resonate through him. She is. Like you. Lyria turned her head, and suddenly their faces were inches apart. In the dim light, her silver eyes were luminous. Neither looked away. You honor your sister by becoming someone worth finding, she said. The moment stretched, charged with something beyond the cold, beyond survival. Marcus became acutely aware of every point where their bodies touched, shoulder, hip, thigh. The warmth spreading between them had nothing to do with shared body heat. Lyria, Kessa whispered, a warning in her tone. But Lyria didn't move away. Instead, her hand found Marcus's beneath the shared blanket, fingers intertwining with his. His heart hammered as her thumb traced slow circles on his palm. I'm not supposed to feel this, she breathed, so softly only he could hear. Feel what? Curious. Connected. She paused. Safe. Marcus turned his hand, palm pressing fully against hers. "I feel it too." The wind screamed outside, but inside their small shelter, a different kind of storm was building. Lyria leaned closer, her forehead nearly touching his. Her breath warmed his lips. "This is unwise," she whispered. "Probably the worst idea I've had," he agreed. But neither pulled away. Kessa made a small sound of resignation. Myra simply watched, her expression unreadable. The night stretched long and cold, but wherever Lyria and Marcus touched, warmth bloomed. They didn't kiss, not yet, but their hands remained entwined, and sometimes her head rested on his shoulder, and sometimes his cheek pressed against her hair. Words became unnecessary. The language of touch, of shared warmth, of possibility spoke louder than any translation could manage. When dawn finally came, they would face decisions. But for now, in the darkness and the cold, they simply held on to each other and the unexpected connection that had ignited between them. Outside, the storm raged on.